I spent 6 hours previewing Crimson Desert and I still don't know what it is. This is what Sam Woods of The Gamer had to say after playing 6 hours of the game. In case you didn't know, Crimson Desert is a big AAA game being developed by Pearl Abyss, a Korean studio. And since this is not a game from a big Western AAA studio, I was fully expecting the game journos to try and attack it in some way, just like they did with Black Myth Wukong and Stellar Blade. And guess what? The Gamer didn't disappoint. Just recently, Pearl Abyss invited a ton of influencers to try out their game, and this wasn't any scripted demo or a quest that these people were supposed to play through. This wasn't a vertical slice tech demo situation where creators handpick a specific part of the game to be played. These people could play the game however they wanted, and they were allowed to record their own videos as well. In the gaming industry, this is definitely not the norm, and I don't really remember any other AAA publisher doing this with so much transparency. What's even crazier is that Alex from Digital Foundry couldn't attend the event because of health issues, so Pearl Abyss sent them the game footage themselves. And not just that, they went out of their way to record a custom footage specifically for them with the slow sweeping camera shots for a proper technical breakdown. I mean, who does that? They could have easily just ignored them or sent them any footage they had just lying around and be done with it, but they didn't. And this type of behavior needs to be acknowledged and respected. Yes, of course, they're not doing all this out of the goodness of their heart. They have invested an ass load of money to this game, and obviously they want to make it all back and then some. But instead of doubling down on live service slop, microtransactions, or culture war bullshit like most of the other companies, they're seemingly doubling down on all the right things. And in doing so, they've made it clear that they respect the time and the money of the players, which is why these masochist game journos cannot stand this game. I mean, there's a reason why Crimson Desert has got 3 million wishlists and is shaping up to be one of the biggest releases of 2026. Meanwhile, a game like Marathon, that was supposed to be Sony's next Fortnite, struggled over the weekend to go toe-to-toe with an indie game, but more on that later. Now, since I myself wasn't invited to try out Crimson Desert for obvious reasons, I had to watch other people talk about the game, and from what I've seen and heard so far, other than a few complaints about some bugs, puzzles being difficult and poorly explained, the control scheme, and some overly complicated things that could have been extremely simple, almost everyone has been praising this game. Now, there's been a ton of coverage on the mechanics and the systems already, so I don't want to waste your time by making a 40-minute video repeating what everyone else has said. But there are two things that caught my attention, and I think they're worth mentioning because they make a huge difference. First one is that the game features fully motion captured cutscenes and the acting is pretty good. And from what I've seen, they aren't just limited to the main quest. Even the NPC interactions and side quests are fully motion captured as well, which is crazy to say the least. They could have just easily gone in the Ubisoft direction and gave us those artificial hand-wavy animations.
Where is the box?
And to be honest, I was actually fully expecting these type of interactions to be in Crimson Desert, but it blew me away how the devs didn't compromise on the cinematic quality of the game, even though story is probably not even the main focus of this game. The second thing is the performance. Now, I won't go super deep into the numbers, but based on the gameplay and the specs for the PC that the game was running on, Pearl Abyss has pretty much proved that you don't need a damn jet engine to get a game of this scale and size to run well. What you need is a black space engine. And from what I've gathered, most of the people at the event didn't face any stutters or FPS drops or any kind of performance issues. However, it is important to note that most of them did face some seriously frustrating bugs in the late game save files. I think it means that while the initial stages of the game are well polished, the devs are actively working on the later stages of the game, and since it's a pretty long game, it'll probably be fixed by the time any of us manages to reach that point once the game comes out. They also shared the spec sheets for consoles, ROG Ally, and even the Mac PCs, and it seems like the base PS5 can handle this game pretty well. Now, I just want to quickly mention that while all the other big YouTubers have probably already got the Crimson Desert review codes and are probably playing the hell out of it right now, I'll be buying the game with my own hard-earned $70 and will be reviewing it on the base PS5 to give you a real gamer-to-gamer perspective on whether this game's worth playing or not. So please consider subscribing to the channel to help keep the lights on. I would really appreciate the help. Thank you. Now, even though there's a high possibility that this game might actually deliver on its promises, this article from The Gamer is trying the hardest to paint the game in a bad light, just like IGN did a while back. The only problem is that once again, they can't really find anything objectively bad to hold against the game, so they're just nitpicking stuff that would never be a conversation if this were, let's say, a Ubisoft game. They complain about the game's absurdity and how it was immersion breaking, that at one point Cliff was carrying a raccoon in his inventory and how he had to fight a fish god boss and a mechanical clown. And not just that, they also whine about the magic systems being nonsensical and once again, immersion breaking. But they didn't bother bringing up the things that actually matter. Like, I don't know, the performance, the visuals, the voice acting, the overall quality of the game, or the most important thing of all, does the game actually make you want to keep playing? Because if a game actually manages to do that, if it doesn't let you put your controller down, then it has cracked the code. But no, never mind, let's just complain some more about the Sky Islands and the environmental puzzles. Cliff received a range of powers, not too dissimilar to Link's Ultra Hand from Tears of the Kingdom. It allowed him to grab and manipulate objects in the world around him, which was vital for solving many of the game's push and pull puzzles, another addition that doesn't add much to Crimson Desert. I made sure to whiz through the game's plodding sky segment and its laborious puzzles to get back down to earth. And in my opinion, this is just ridiculous. Yes, the puzzles are probably not very well explained and might even be tedious. Can't really say anything until I try the game myself, but still, how can you say that they don't add much to the game? Adding these environmental puzzles is a great way to switch things up and add some much needed variety to the gameplay, like the Prince of Persia games did back in the day. And that gameplay variety is something that even many decent modern open world games do not have. I mean, just look at Assassin's Creed Origins. The game itself was solid, but it got super repetitive after only a few hours because all the side quests and even the main quests boil down to just the same two things: infiltrating an enemy camp to either assassinate a target or to rescue someone. Even the random encounters were nothing more than saving lifeless NPCs from animal attacks, and that's pretty much it. So it's just ridiculous that they're complaining about the things which would otherwise be the best and the most innovative features ever if it were an Assassin's Creed game. In fact, just out of curiosity, I looked at their AC Shadows review, which they scored a 4 out of 5 by the way. Despite some repetition and bloat that makes Assassin's Creed Shadows' final stretch drag more than the rest of the game, the entire game was a drag, but anyways, reading on. Its brave approach to exploration in a gorgeous world, heartfelt personal stories, and satisfying tweaks to the formula still make it stand as one of my favorite entries yet. While no one can say if Shadows will be the all-timer hit that both Ubisoft and the series need right now, I can at least say that it's more than worthy of your time. Do you honestly believe this? If you're someone who has played AC Shadows and you're not brain dead, can you really say all this about the game? Would you actually want to recommend this game to your best friend? They literally praise the game that offers nothing more than the same tired Ubisoft formula. They didn't bring up the piss-poor writing, the bad acting, the bad music, or the horrendously bad cutscene quality. But Crimson Desert adds Sky Islands with puzzles and suddenly it's a problem and doesn't add much to the game. And of course it doesn't stop with AC Shadows. They did the same with games like Dragon Age the Veilguard, Highguard, Concord, and now recently Marathon. Bungie is expecting Marathon to have queues on release, so get in early. Marathon is shaping up to be one of the biggest releases of 2026. The recent server slam designed to test the game's online infrastructure under high-stress environment saw almost 150,000 players jump in on Steam alone. Its launch is shaping up to be far bigger than that. My question is, what the f*** are you on about? I mean, the game couldn't even get more players over the weekend for a free demo, but anyways, reading on. Despite some discontent around the pricing, developer morale dropping to a point where it had never been worse, plagiarism accusations, and multiple rounds of layoffs at Bungie, sentiment has been restored and the hype around the title has returned. In fact, the players are so excited about the game that Bungie has issued a warning that there may be server queues on launch day, so you better get online quickly. Yeah, sure, this is what the launch of this super hyped game looks like. The game launched on a Thursday with a peak of around 88,000 players, and over the course of the weekend where the peak should have actually spiked, the game lost around 10% of its player count. Marathon managed to get around 75,000 players on a Saturday and then 73,000 players on a Sunday. On Monday, the game peaked at around 66,000 players. Not gonna lie, at this point, it seems to be more of a short jog than a marathon. On the positive side though, at least Bungie will never have to worry about their servers again. Now, before anyone starts yelling in the comments that Steam numbers don't show the whole picture, you yes, it probably does not, but it does give you a solid idea of what's actually going on. Battlefield 6 lost 90% of its players on Steam just 4 months after release, and now there are reports that EA has laid off staff across all Battlefield studios. Because of course you can't really pay your employees while keeping the servers running when only 60,000 of the desired 100 million players show up to play your AAA live service game. Now yes, as of now Marathon has not seen an exponential drop-off like that, but the initial trajectory is not looking so great in the first place, and I'm pretty sure this is not what Sony wanted. They didn't buy Bungie for $3.6 billion to get an average game that sells like 300,000 copies over the launch weekend. What they wanted was a launch similar to, I don't know, Slay the Spire 2. A single-player deck builder indie game that came out on the same day as Marathon and completely blew it out of the water. At the time of me making this video, it has hit a peak of a staggering 574,000 players, making it the 20th highest peak on Steam. Not to mention it got 568,000 players on a Monday. Even during the lows, the game is hitting over 200,000 players. I mean, these are crazy numbers to say the least. Any big AAA company would literally sell their mother's soul to get even half of the engagement. Now yes, you can argue it's just a $25 indie game that you can probably run on a damn calculator, and that's why the barrier to entry is so much lower than Marathon. Which, to be fair, kinda makes sense. So even though Marathon's free demo couldn't pull a fraction of those numbers, let's just, for the sake of this argument, assume that the low price point is working in the favor of Slay the Spire 2. Then how can you explain the insane success of a full-price $70 AAA game like Resident Evil Requiem? It has been peaking at around 100,000 players 11 days after release, and at the time of me making this video, the game has already sold around 5 million copies, making it the fastest selling Resident Evil game in the franchise's history. I mean, this is exactly what happens when a game is good. Now, I'm not saying that Marathon is a bad game. Sure, it has its flaws like any other game out there. And I would even say that it's a decent game underneath all the ugly UI and the puke of neon colors. But its biggest problem is that it's a very competitive live service extraction shooter game which exists in a market that is pretty much sick and tired of live service games in the first place, and that's why Marathon does not have the potential to be a mainstream hit. I know for a fact that there are a lot of people like me who tried out the free demo but will probably never play it again even if the game were free. The people playing it right now are likely the ones who are already sold on it. And that raises the question, what about the people who didn't get the chance to try out the free demo? The fact that Bungie has asked players to not post their reviews until later this month because they plan to release some sort of special event is just plain absurd and kinda stupid in my opinion because it hurts player trust. But of course the usual suspects are obeying and not a single review has been posted from these so-called professional game critics so far. Not that their reviews matter much in the first place, but a lot of casual gamers that don't watch YouTube channels like mine do rely on them. So my question is, why release a game if it's not meant to be reviewed yet? From the way I see it, it seems that Bungie dropped an incomplete game. And what's even worse is that no one's really calling them out over this. This is a $40 game that is now available to buy. It's not in early access or whatever the term is. Either people should review the game as it exists, or they should tell Bungie, you know what, we'll buy it when you finish the damn thing. And who knows, maybe that's what's happening. Maybe people are actually waiting for that new update to buy the game. But anyways, the point is single-player games, and I'm talking about good single-player games, not garbage like this. It's an important distinction to make. Good single-player games, made with passion and love that respect the player's time and money, will always be in high demand and will sell like crazy. That's the reality. And the recent success of Resident Evil Requiem and the fact that Crimson Desert has got around 3 million wishlists so far is an actual proof of concept. So Sony greenlighting Marathon, another extraction hero shooter, is like asking Bungie to bungee jump into an active volcano without the rope. And greenlighting that live service Horizon game is like asking Guerrilla Studios to wrestle an actual gorilla. That was supposed to be a joke. You may laugh now. But anyways, I'll leave you at that. Do let me know if you'll be buying Crimson Desert on day 1, or will you hold off till you watch a brutally honest review of this game, by me of course. Don't forget to drop a like and subscribe if you haven't done it already. Use the hype feature so my video lands before more eyeballs and my channel blows up. I would really appreciate the support. Thanks a ton for watching. Until next time, take care.